This isn't just a hum, this is a thundering roar into and out of the void. Welcome to Everyone Who Does Music, where today we're looking at the 7th studio album from American pop-punk band The Wonder Years called The Hum Goes On Forever. This comes after their most recent release, Sister Cities, that released back in 2018, which was focused mainly on the ongoing feelings and aftermath of a world tour that the band embarked on that spanned 2 years. That album had a lot of emotional and steady, just focus-driven work, as does every album from them, but it felt like a much more down-to-earth affair with its timing and leaning towards reflection while still being in the middle of a storm. I really loved and connected to another of their albums, Closer to Heaven, with a feeling like the band's magnum opus in many ways, but I didn't quite connect with Sister Cities in the same way that I really wanted to. Obviously, the Wonder Years are masters of pop-punk emotion, but I was left without as much personal connection to the album, possibly due to the fact that instead of personal stories with possible connectivity, it was a much more personal affair on their part that was directed at their current happenings within the band, which is what a band should be striving to make in general, making music and stories based off of their experiences. But that's beyond what I'm getting at here. What I'm trying to say is Closer to Heaven felt like a more emotionally resonating album due to my personal connections, while Sister Cities felt more personal to them, therefore kind of dividing my interest and ability to enjoy it. I'm using this intro as a way to sort of segue into this. This album is one that not only connected to me with a potent effect, but one that stuck with me every time I arrived at the end of it. For the sake and matter that it did relate to me this time, such as No Closer to Heaven, but it also felt personal on the band's part, as Sister Cities did. This feels like an album that is very on par with Closer to Heaven. Let's talk about why. I think one of the strongest parts of the foundation that The Hum is built upon is that this set of songs not only holds a clear place in the band's current vibe, but pays tribute to the past with a few songs, those being Oldest Daughter and of course Cardinals 2. The sequel to the previous Cardinals at times uses direct quotes and adapted ones while following similar tones and cues. The original song tells a story of watching someone's life flash before their eyes and wishing there was something you could do to halt the pain and sorrow, if not prevent it ever happening. Cardinals 2 chooses to have a wider lens pointed towards helplessness, evolving on the original thought process with very imaginative lyricism, a common thing on albums from this band, just a whole lot of reflection. Moving on to Oldest Daughter, besides the obvious name call out, it has further callbacks in terms of the emotion being communicated, that of wandering lost in a world full of the same assholes around every turn. Madeline is more than struggling. She has been lost in a sea made up of tidal waves formed in depression and helplessness, and singer Dan Campbell is staring in from the outside, seemingly unable to break through the surface tension in any meaningful way despite his desires. While there's many emotions talked about throughout the course of this album, one that seems to never quite leave the atmosphere is this helplessness I keep coming back to. It's a very common thing, filling up the air with saddened words and calls into the void, such as with the song Songs About Death, which is a hell of a title track, or not title track, hell of a song title. Oof. This track serves as very impactful in terms of pure sound, with a booming instrumental supported by Matt Braish and Casey Cavalier especially. The guitars throughout The Hum Goes On Forever switch between just enough to complement the mood to dominating, and the latter is happening here with great effort and effect. With the lyrics hitting in and out in simplistic but poignant fashion, it's up to the rest of the band to deliver something on equal level, but instead they go above and beyond here, somewhat taking over the track over the vocals and lyrics. You can ever so barely hear the keyboard infusions from Nick Steinborn strewn in among the percussive sounds, but it comes across almost as beautifully as a movie soundtrack in terms of its thickness and resonance. Resonance? I think resonance. Not everything on this album is about sad times, however. In fact, early on, we get a glimpse into something plain and honestly wholesome with Wyatt's song. There's a very loving and protective theme in this track with lines like, "I found glass in the garden, dug it up with my thumb," speaking to the gentle love that Dan feels for his son Wyatt. An especially nice touch is the song's BPM, or beats per minute, which is 133, which is the same BPM his son's heartbeat was when he recorded it, making for a touching piece of art. A song that flips this idea later comes on the album later on, with the late track Laura and the Beehive. Dan sings about someone who I assume is his mother or a maternal figure in his life, and how she's near and dear to him for her protective ways and how she constantly worries over him, sort of like how he's now worrying over his son. A touching and somewhat painful lyric comes in the chorus, "Cause I know how you ask around and worry when you hear the songs, so I just called to let you know that I'm alright, no matter what." There's not an awful lot to say about these two songs outside of this pure care and attention to detail put into them that nearly matches the care Dan feels for his loved ones. It's honestly both in a critical sense and just an overall enjoyment sense. Just great fucking music for its way of just bringing pure emotion out of you. Above all else, the emotion and overall energy seems to be kicked up a notch when put in comparison to sister cities, as is evident in a more raucous manner with old friends like Lost Teeth, a track that feels comparable to Greatest Generation levels, anger, and a less abrasive exterior compact with it. And when it comes to examples of pure elation and content, the outro, You're the Reason I Don't Want the World to End, it comes in clutch with one final supernova of adoration and admiration. The Wonder Years aren't just firing on all cylinders, they're performing at a level that rivals their best work in No Closer to Heaven, to a point where I'd say with stark confidence that the two albums are on equal levels of attention to detail and just emotion put into words. There's so much love for both the craft of songwriting and for the loved one these songs are about. It's hard to find music that doesn't directly pertain to a situation I'm going through that hits me with a lot of emotional weight. This album manages to strike chords that I wouldn't find as resonant from other bands due to the pure, raw emotion that Dan and all the others from this band put into each and every song. For this reason and the reasons I've talked about before, The Hum Goes On Forever gets a 9.2 out of 10, and that's the review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you prefer angry music, sad music, something in between? What's your vibe? If you're having a good day, hope you're staying hydrated. I hope to see you next time. Have a good one.